State of the Union with Candy Kohler, CNN Sunday Morning, 9 Eastern.
Let me take you to one of the things that I've seen you say a lot and that you allude to in here, and that is that you do think that initially the right number of forces were sent into Afghanistan, that you were fully manned, if you will, there. If that is the case, why did the Taliban come back in such force in 2006 and 2007?
Because they're determined, they're dedicated, they're vicious. They are anxious to reestablish themselves and have a country. It was such a terrible regime that only 3 nations in the world had diplomatic relations with the Taliban.
But couldn't more troops have taken care of more Taliban so there'd be fewer of them to come back?
No, they simply move into another country, go into neighboring countries, go into Pakistan. No, or disappear, or just become quiet and not be active. And the minute they have an opportunity, they come back. So what's going to happen, General Petraeus is a fine general, and I'm sure he's doing a good job there. But what's going to have to happen eventually is the Afghan people, the Afghan government, the Afghan security forces are going to have to figure out a arrangement with their people so that it is not hospitable to the Taliban. And they're in the process of doing some of that right now, and over time. But they're not going to disappear. They're a small group of people that are dedicated and determined and vicious. I mean, these people were using the soccer statement.
Okay, 10 years from now, we're still going to be there?
No, no. And I said that. I said, look, you can't make a career out of this. The Afghans are going to have to solve it.
It's kind of like we are making a career out of it.
Well, if you think of it like World War I or II, where it starts and it ends, then you're right. If you think of it like the Cold War, where it lasted 30, 40 years, and
people weren't dying daily in the Cold War.
No, but there were things going on in the world. I mean, the Soviet Union was expansive in Africa and Latin America and various parts of other portions of the globe. This is not a conventional war with armies, navies, and air forces. We have some troops, but basically it's going to be won not by bullets, but by ideas and by competition of ideas and by the countries involved. They're going to have to...
But we're still kind of in the bullet phase.
Of course we are, to some extent.
10 years later.
But we haven't lost a battle. We can't lose a battle in terms of a military battle. That means that there's something else going on. And what's going on is we're going to have to persuade the world that these people are harmful, they're dangerous, they're against the nation-state concept, and then the Afghan people are going to have sufficient forces to manage their country.
Let me ask you in a sort of a broader sense about the Obama administration. You once said if you're not being criticized, you may not be doing much. So I want to give you this opportunity. What is it that you think they are not doing right?
I'm not there. I've been out for 4 years. You only look at it from afar, and I think private diplomacy is probably vastly more important than their public pronouncements, and I'm not knowledgeable about their private diplomacy. I do think they were wrong in attacking the Bush administration structures that have kept this country safe for almost a decade now. They now have switched from the campaign mode, and they are keeping Guantanamo Bay. They are keeping indefinite detention. They are keeping military commissions. So obviously they've come to the conclusion that their campaign promises, easier to campaign than it is to govern. And I think they've made the right decisions in keeping some of those structures, because no one wants to have a jail. No one wants to have to do these things. But we've got to defend the American people. We've got to be willing to do it. And I think they've made a series of right decisions in not trying to tear down that structure.
The president's supporters say that in 2 years he has been able to return this country to a status of being liked across the world in a way that America was not liked during the Bush administration, that he has once again made America a beacon. Do you agree with that? Do you think that the U.S. is now looked at much differently than it was, and much more positively than it was during your tenure?
No, and I don't think there's data that supports that. I think he has made a practice of trying to apologize for America. I personally am proud of America.
Well, he seems to be quite popular overseas in a way that President Bush was not. The streets aren't full of people burning him in effigy. There does seem to be a a chance to look at America in a different way than it did during the Bush administration. You don't think that's true?
I don't think that's true, and I don't think that there's data that would support that.
Even though the streets look differently?
I just don't think it's correct. I could be wrong, but I honestly don't think it's correct. I think that people...
Some people think it's part of the reason why he got the Nobel Prize, was that he was, you know, that people just looked at him so much differently.
Well, he had not accomplished a thing when he got the Nobel Prize. It was given to him on hope. Had to have been, because there wasn't anything that he'd done. He'd been in office 15 minutes.
A little more than 15
minutes. A little
more.